Hello, friends. It is I, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. It's a Friday. It's 2:33 p.m. I'm back on my regular schedule with putting out these subscriber encounter stories from subscribers or emailers. I've had some stuff going on. As you know, I'm back on my Friday schedule. Thanks to all of you that enjoy the classic Bigfoot. That's not going away. I'm still going to do those. But I'm about 3 months behind on these emails I've gotten, either from you guys or from emails. So I have to get on with it. Thank you to each of and every one of you that has subscribed to the channel. I've now surpassed 2,000 subscribers. Thank you to each and every single one of you for that. I do appreciate it. If you're new here, subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Share me out if you would. Thank you so much. I love, as I said, when I say that, I mean that. I love you all. And a quick note before we get on with this fantastic encounter. The month of April, beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. All month long, great Bigfoot researchers joining me. Going to be fantastic, fantastic show, including a lady from Australia who is like the cryptid queen of Australia. She'll be joining. And don't forget, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob on Thursdays at 1 in the East with the lovely Krista. Thank you to everybody. I appreciate you when I say that, and I do mean that. And we're getting back on track. Appalachian Bigfoot stalking these guys during their camping outing. It's got everything. Kick back. It's Friday. Get your favorite beverage. Enough of me. Here's on with the story. Hi, Rob. My name is John. At least that's the name I'm going to use for the story. I was hiking on a well-known Appalachian trail running through the state of Vermont with my hiking partner, Lance. It was early June. The year was 1997. We went out early to scout ahead for a camping spot, of which was my friend Lance and I yearly get-together. We have been friends since high school, and with our hectic schedules, we made a point to get caught up on life at least once per year. It was also nice as our two wives, Laura and Beth, also since high school, would get together when we went out as well. Fun for everybody. A perfect weekend for lifelong friends. The trail that we hiked led us to a perfect spot with a magnificent view of the mountains. It had an open area backing up to the tree line, with a rather nice-sized stream that flowed through the camp, I should say, to provide for some hopeful, great fishing. It was all set. We found the perfect spot and planned to head out the following weekend. Lance and I met at the trail early that next Friday, parked our vehicles, and proceeded on a 5-mile hike into the woods to our location. It was a beautiful morning in the lower 60-degree range and not a cloud in the sky. The tall trees along this part of the Appalachian Trail also provided for more than adequate shade to make the temperature even more pleasurable. The further up the trail that we hiked, Lance and I heard what sounded to be that of a large tree come crashing down to the ground just ahead of us by about 30 yards or so. Sure enough, after another few minutes of hiking, laid in the path ahead of us was a rather large tree about 30 feet long. It was laying right across the path. Lance and I started to examine the tree. We took note that it was not an old or sickly tree. It appeared healthy. It was very green. The odd thing was at the base of this tree, perhaps 5 feet from ground level, is where it snapped. Very fresh, and we took note as well that the barrel of this tree had to be at least 6 or 7 inches in diameter. This is very thick to be simply pushed and snapped straight down to the ground. This took some extreme energy and extreme power. The power of no man. Hell, Rob, 50 men could not have accomplished this feat, especially how clean this break was. Lance and I stopped, kind of in awe, and admittedly a little bit scared. There were no hikers in our area. In fact, we suddenly realized that there was not a sound in the forest, not even the chirping of a bird or smaller animals bustling about. This suddenly put a very eerie and strange sense of fear into both Lance. Our demeanor changed. We never heard the forest quite so quiet. It was like having a bunch of cotton shoved down your ear canal or wearing headgear to muffle the sounds of gunshots at the firing range. Lance and I decided to make our way to camp, which was perhaps 1 or 2 miles ahead, at the very most. Not to sound cliche, Rob, we all have heard of people's Bigfoot encounters, that feeling of being watched or even being paralleled by something anyways, while walking about the woods. I kid you not. The moment that we left the fallen tree, Lance and I experienced both those events. We looked at each other, and it seemed we read each other's minds as we put our fingers to our lips to silence each other, to stop and to listen. We felt a presence, and sure enough, when we walked, we heard the crackling of the underbrush flanking us to our left side. The steps were bipedal. You could almost feel the vibration beneath our feet. Again, we stopped. The bipedal walking, or perhaps the stalking, quite frankly, a better word, stopped as well. This happened almost all the way to our campsite. Unnerved, Lance and I quickly set up our camp, sat down, and went over what we had just experienced. It was less than 10 seconds when we both started talking about Bigfoot. Lance and myself did believe in the existence of such a creature, but like most, it was simply a passing thought. We have heard the stories and, frankly, viewed it as entertainment. However, this was not entertaining, and we believe there was a Bigfoot nearby. We believe it knocked down the tree as well, and we do believe it was following us. We do believe it was watching us. Sitting in our camp, we still had the feeling of being watched. We had to decide if we were to turn back or wait it out. Well, we decided to wait it out, and perhaps that was the wrong choice. Trying to get our minds off the possibility of a Bigfoot stalking us, we went down to the stream, as I mentioned earlier in the story, to try our luck at fishing. The fishing did, in fact, calm our nerves, and that feeling of being watched, strangely, yet welcoming, faded away. We landed a bunch of smaller-sized trout, and now we were excited about cooking them and getting back to camp. We even started to joke about our imagination, or imagining this entire episode. Now, the tree knocked over was indeed a fact, but maybe we were just spooking ourselves with this entire time regarding the footfall and the feeling of being watched in that eerily fashion. It was not until we returned to camp that we now know that this was a Bigfoot. Surrounding our campsite, we found huge footprints, or I guess you would call them tracks. They measured 22 inches long by at least 6 or 7 inches wide. There were several tracks, some more distinctive than others. The one track that really flipped our lids was this one track in particular. It was very distinctively and hard pressed deeply into the ground, and you could clearly see 5 oversized toes to go along with the 22-inch length and the 6-inch width. Lance and I were kind of in shock, yet somewhat excited, if that makes any sense. Now we had to determine if we needed to go home or stay. We went over about alleged Bigfoot sightings and really never heard of Bigfoot hurting people. So we decided to man up and at least spend one night and see how it goes. I know, you probably think this is crazy, but there was also something about this that spiked our adrenaline and our curiosity at best. Nighttime fell, and Lance and I, as the night progressed, were much more calm and relaxed. Then that stopped. Not 50 yards from camp, we heard a very loud and thunderous vocalization from an animal we had never heard before. It was almost like beast-like. Then, very much like hearing the first tree crashing to the ground, a very similar huge thud smashed into the earth. Then all went silent. Much like before, we sat and we waited. We sat for several hours. Then finally, Lance and I sprang to our feet and went to investigate what we believed was another tree being knocked over. 50 yards towards the tree line, there laying in front of us, like we thought, was another huge young tree snapped and pushed over. After a minute or so, that thunderous vocalization sounded, but this was much closer. Lance and I look deeper into the woods and see a very tall and robust shadow being eclipsed by the moon. The shadow was alive, as we saw a set of huge yellow glowing eyes blinking back at us. Carefully, we walked, did not run, back to our camp. We sat up all night long until daybreak. Lance and I now are 100% convinced that Bigfoot does exist. Oddly enough, we did not go home. However, we did pack up our gear and headed back to our vehicle and found another camping spot some 30 miles away. Later that night, at our new campsite, we heard that thunderous vocalization again. It was much further out. We just sat and listened and finished out our trip together because we felt that we did not want this beast to ruin our yearly trip together. Signed, John. Excellent story. You guys, we all hear this paralleling us sometimes in the woods. This guy found some crazy tracks. The toes, the 22 inches, the thunderous boom. Reminds me of my encounter with the thunderous boom. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Appalachian Trail in Vermont. Great story. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Thank you again for everybody that has subscribed. Share me out. Let's get to 3,000. Let's get to 3,000. All of us together. Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Have a great weekend.